I'm gonna talk a few things about my experience with Xcode Cloud. Let's start with some dark ages. So actually I started my first program in primary school, I think, and it was a simple calculator in a language called Pascal. Who of you knows Pascal? Okay, quite a lot. I didn't expect that. Nice. However, I didn't start my career with Pascal, but you know, in 80s we have a lot of well-built websites full of colors, visitor counters, and stuff like this, and it was everywhere. So I asked my teacher in the primary school on the lesson if we can build a website. It was such cool stuff for me, and he agreed. So I was excited, but it turned out that we're gonna build a website in Microsoft Word. So we just put some images, text, and save as HTML. So yeah, I was a bit disappointed. But over a decade ago, I started my first job in IT as someone we can call full stack developer. So I basically did everything, mostly front end and back end. And in that years, like in a small company, we didn't have someone like principal or DevOps. I don't even know if there was a job title like this in that time. Yeah, so when I started, when I was deploying a website to a server, I simply open FTP client or something like this, and I simply drag my files to the server. So you can imagine that it was quite error prone. Yeah, and there was a lot of files which I need to drag. So it was very easy to make a mistake. With mobile apps, it's quite different. Usually we have one file. So we could do it manually, maybe. Yeah, so now I'm here. I'm Oskar. As you know, I have experience as a software architect, and now I'm lead iOS engineer at Dyson. So you can imagine now I have like a quite different experience of how to deploy apps to production environments. So I think nowadays it's much easier to use deployment process. Even if you want to build a simple website on Firebase using Firebase Cloud Functions, you have like command line tool, and with one command you can deploy all your changes. Everyone use Git, so it's much easier. However, there are some processes we can follow, and I believe it's worth to know what to include in your continuous integration. It's worth to know what is continuous integration. So let's start with why. I think that continuous integration can give you the confidence when you do the changes. So first of all, early detection. So especially for big apps, when everyone pulls the code to the repository, it's much easier to catch bugs and different defects when they appear before they are merged to the main branch. You can automate your testing to ensure that new changes you introduce, or maybe your easy fix works with the whole app. It also provides consistent builds, so everyone in the team works on the same environment. The app must work on the same version of the Xcode. So works on my machine doesn't apply here, and It's important because it provides a scalable architecture. So especially for big apps, like in Dyson, we have 15 teams works on one app, and you can imagine how many pull requests we have daily. So when everyone push the code, it's very important to check every part of the app if we don't have any bugs. Of course, continuous integration is integrated with version control, so it's easier to track your changes. And last but not least, continuous deployment. So like I said, when you have everything tested and every change, you're sure with the every change you did, you can deploy to your production environment. There are different platforms and solutions you can use for that. So I believe well known is Bitrise. It's mobile oriented cloud-based platform, mainly for iOS, and for Android it has nice interface, so you can easily change blocks and create your continuous integration process. Next one is TeamCity. It's from JetBrains, so it gives a lot of flexibility. It's also much more complex. You can use actually any language. I believe they also have a solution in cloud right now, but it's not only for mobile. Very similar for that, but open source is Jenkins. And about the solution in the cloud, we have also GitHub Actions. It is based on the YAML file, so you can configure your pipeline, your workflows in the YAML file, and it works with the GitHub repository, so integration is painless. We have also Bamboo from Atlassian. It's also a very complex tool. And finally, we have something from Apple. Recently, they announced Xcode Cloud, which works for all Apple products. So iOS, macOS, iPad OS, and watchOS, right? What to include in the pipeline? In general, I think we can emphasize these three things. So quality gates, when you can check security standards, you can measure your code quality, code complexity. You can do linting to ensure that everyone in the team use the same syntax. Like I said before, it's important to test and validate your code, your features, and at the end you can create an artifact which you can deploy to the production environment. Okay, so let's focus on Xcode Cloud and how to set it up. It's very easy. All you need is Apple developer account and a repository on GitHub, GitLab, or Bitbucket. These are free platforms that Apple supports. And recently, Apple announced new pricing for Xcode Cloud. So it's free up to 25 hours per month. So maybe for a very complex project it's not enough, but of course they have different packages as well. Okay, so like I said, it's super simple. What you need to do is just set up your development account in Xcode, then you go to the report navigator and you change to cloud. And there you have the button to create your first workflow. After that, you just need to select the target, select the product you want to include in your continuous integration. And here you are creating your first workflow. You can give a name, description, and of course you need to select the repository. In my case, I was working with GitHub. And then you can define your start condition. So start condition is like a trigger which starts, which will start the action. So the first trigger is branch changes. So whenever someone pushes the code to a branch, it starts the action. So I think it's most common to use it on develop. So whenever someone merges a new change to the develop, you can run your test suite to ensure that after these changes everything still works. Next trigger is pull request changes. So whenever someone creates a PR or updates the PR, it runs an action. So before the merge, you can make sure that everything works fine, and you don't need to wait for the changes to be merged into the develop branch. Next one is tag changes. So whenever you push a tag to your repository, it again runs the actions. So for example, when you want to push a new version of your app to App Store, then you can tag the code on the main branch, and based on that, the workflow on Xcode Cloud will start. Next two are a bit different. Next is on schedule. So if you want to run some actions daily or maybe weekly, that's something for you. You can select a day, you can select an hour when something must run. I believe a good example is UI tests. So usually it takes a bit more time, and development teams don't want to block each other running all the UI tests before they merge changes to the main branch. So usually it happens during the night. So in the morning when you come to work, you can check what is wrong. And the last one is manual start. Actually, all of these workflows, when you define it, it can be run manually, but you can also have only manual run. So for example, if you work with many environments like dev, test, UAT, staging, and your QA team sometimes needs test version, sometimes dev version, so they can schedule, so they can manually start a workflow on Xcode Cloud and get the artifact they want. So next thing is action. Based on the trigger, you can select your action. First one is analyze. So you can check if your code doesn't have any memory leaks. It's the basic analyze from Xcode. Build. It just check if your code compiles. So it doesn't produce the artifact. The action which produced the artifact is archive, and as a result of this action, you have an artifact you can deploy to test flight and send an invitation to internal or external testers, or you can just store the artifact on Xcode Cloud. And last but not least, tests. So you can run unit test, integration test, and UI test on your workflow to ensure that everything in your app works fine. There is also something called post action, and actually it's available only for the archive. So like I said, after you archive your app, you can send it to test flight for external testing, and for internal testing you can notarize, which is mostly for Mac OS. It's the process where Apple checks your software and notify. So it's just notification sense that the workflow has completed. What is pretty nice, you can see all the logs directly in Xcode, so you don't need to go to a website, go to a server and download the whole logs. You see it in a quite nice way. It's actually the same way you see it when you run, for example, a test locally. So it's very easy to identify what went wrong. There is also one thing which we hate, or we used to hate, and I think that Xcode Cloud solved it in a nice way. So we know for some time we have automatic app signing, but with Xcode Cloud you don't even need to care about that. So if you have your workflow integrated with your app, it's integrated based on the bundle ID, and Xcode Cloud does everything for you under the hood. So you just create a workflow, you can choose archive action, and it will deploy your app to TestFly or of course to the App Store. So with Xcode Cloud we don't have more app signing issues unless you have some different cases, but I will also go a bit deeper to that topic later on. And you might think, okay, it's fine, but it only allows me to test my builds, to deploy it to TestFlight and App Store, but actually we have different distribution methods. We distribute it through Firebase. We want to make some custom work with our app, and there is something like custom scripts. So here are steps which happens on Xcode Cloud. So after it clones the Git repository, there is a process post clone, and there is a place when you can run your custom script. Also, after Xcode resolve dependencies, which is worth mentioning, Xcode Cloud works with Cocoapods and with Swift Package Manager. After that, again, you have your time to execute your script, which is called pre-Xcode build script. And after the build, again, you have a chance to run your script. So basically, before the build, after the clone, and after the clone, before the build, and after the build, you have a chance to do something custom. And it's worth to mention that you can use Bash, Ruby, or Python out of the box. You don't need to install anything. Everything you need to do is just put your scripts into CI scripts folder, and that's it. So I have one example we used in my previous company. So with bundle identifiers, it's also tricky with Xcode Cloud because, like I said, when you configure the workflow, it works with the selected bundle identifier. And it's good to use different identifiers for different environments. So in our case, we had test and production, and of course we had different identifiers, meaning we need to configure Xcode Cloud twice. And like I said, because the app signing happens under the hood, we don't really have the control over that, right? Because the identifier is set. The identifier is set in the repo, and you can select only one target to run on Xcode Cloud. So here is the example script. Let me show it to you. In our case, we need to change the bundle identifier only for the production build. And in our case, it happened on the main branch. So it was the pre-Xcode build script where we checked if the branch name, because with these scripts you can play with different environment variables from Xcode Cloud. So for example, you can check the name of the branch which triggers the action, and here I can install my gems, and then I just use my Ruby script, which I will show you now. And what I simply do, I just get the path to my project. I found configuration file for the test environment and for the production environment, and then I use Xcode project gem to simply switch the build configuration. And of course, I do not push these changes to the repo because I want the development team to use only the test environment. I don't want anyone to run anything on the production. So it happens only on the Xcode Cloud, and which is great, it just works. So I just change the configuration, and inside the configuration file I define my bundle ID, and it just works. Xcode builds the project with the new ID and sign as it should be signed. So that was the example. And here are some other example script ideas. So, for example, when you run a test and you want to publish it somewhere, I mean, you want to publish the test results, you want to make an HTML file and send it to your client because, like, they want to see what passes, what failed, right? If you want to change your app icon because you want to have the name of the environment or maybe a version number on the icon, so you can easily distinguish different environments on your phone. Any environment configuration. So this is something I did, or maybe you want to send some custom notification on Slack, email, Teams, whenever you want. This is the place where you can do it. Just a sec, because I lost my notes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So there is a lot of possibilities, and which is, I think, very helpful is simply ChatGPT. So I use AI a lot for generating scripts that runs on the CI. During my interview to Dyson, they asked me how familiar I feel with Swift. So, like, I said, I feel I'm very comfortable with Swift. And they asked me how I feel with Ruby. So I said, I can ask ChatGPT because it's quite a simple language, and it is really helpful to generate generic scripts, and you can make some slight changes later on and use it on your own. Okay, so just to sum up, I started the journey from the dark ages. I don't want to be back there. I think it's very important for the whole development team to feel confident about the changes they do. And like I said, in the Dyson app, we have like a super app which works with many devices, many different machines for people over the world. So like a simple bug might cost the company money or even the reputation. So that's why I encourage you to use continuous integration. And today I focused on Xcode Cloud, which is very simple to integrate. I'm not sure if it fits your custom needs. However, with the custom scripts, I think you can do a lot, and it's very easy to integrate with your repo, and I think it's just worth to give a try. Any questions?
I have one, two.
Okay.
First question would be, do you know where Xcode stores information about the workflow? Like, is it in a project file or?
So the question is if I know where Xcode stores the configuration for the workflow. Yeah, so I think it's on somewhere on App Store Connect, because you need to have a developer account like the regular one. You cannot use Xcode Cloud with the enterprise account, so I think it's a service connected somehow to the App Store Connect. It's not locally, because like you can use it across the team, and there is no configuration file for that on your local machine.
Okay, so maybe quick follow-up question.
Mm-hmm.
How Xcode deals with versioning of such workflows?
So how Xcode deal with versioning? Okay, so there is a new property on App Store Connect. You can set the build number automatically. So App Store Connect deals for you with the build number. For the version number, you need to make it on your own.
Right, I was more thinking about versioning of the workflow specification. Let's say I have my project in particular state, and with the time it changes. So the workflow from that time may not work in the future, but the future workflow may not work with the old code.
Yeah,
so if
I understand. Yeah. So about having a track of record of the past workflows, there is no something like this.
It's like copy-paste on iOS 3, so it will be something.
Yeah, so whenever you change the workflow, it just changed. So I can imagine maybe you're talking about, for example, GitHub Actions, where you have the YAML file and you can store it in the repo, so you can track these changes you made for the workflow. But it's not working like this on Xcode Cloud.
I have one. Did you encounter any dead ends, like blockers that you weren't able to go through? I had one regarding release notes, like testing notes, but they fixed it already, so you can like post description for testers. But maybe you had something else.
Yeah. So about blockers and limits with using Xcode Cloud, I didn't have any. We also use it with a quite small project. So yeah, nothing I have to share here.
I also have a question. Do you use it at Dyson, or it's like?
No, we don't use it at Dyson. Actually, I hope I can say that. At Dyson we use Bamboo. and we are also migrating to Bitrise.
Did you deal with automating tagging or something that is working specifically on Git during the build or after the build?
Can you repeat the question?
So, did you deal with Xcode Cloud with automatic tagging or closing the pull requests?
Okay.
Adding automatic decisions to the Git.
Yeah, so you are asking what kind of triggers do I use? Yeah, so for sure I recommend to everyone to use checks on the PRs. So whenever someone make a change in a PR, also, like, I think there are different use cases, and whenever also suits your project. But these three scenarios, like I said, PR, check on the develop, and maybe check on the main branch. So these two might be branch changes, but you can also use a tag. So for example, in our project, because you can also define a pattern for a tag, so you can have a different workflow for different kind of tags, for different kinds of PRs. So when you open a PR to the developer branch, you can run a different workflow, but when you open a PR to the main branch, you can run a different workflow. So I would say these two, PR and branch changes, are most common. Tag changes, I would say it's less common, but it's also very useful.
One thing about the versioning, because you saw this presented to us this amazing script, I will use it because my solution for that, for two bundle IDs, was to create two workflows. For example, on first project, some workflow that take care about the development, and another project creates something that will take care about the main branch, and another workflow was something like syncs workflow, so it copy another project workflow to the first one, but do nothing. So the versioning number was correct, and I have the same versions on both projects, but I didn't use any script to replace the bundle identifier or reverse something in the project structure, because Xcode Cloud did a dump workflow on this side that wasn't supported by me in that moment. So for example, if I'm releasing on the main branch some new project for external testers, on the developer bundle identifier, the workflow was pretty dummy, targeted main branch only. To do nothing but to rise the version per one.
Okay, so you just want to keep like the same version for both. Yeah, so about the version, I think it's quite simple. Because you store a version in the info file, right?
Yeah, if you build based on the info file.
Yeah, but we didn't care about the build number.
Okay.
So yeah, we just didn't care about the build. Like the version was the main thing for us.
Yeah, it was a case on our side, so we must make some dummy workflows to synchronize between projects.
I believe you can also try to use some environment variables from Xcode Cloud. Maybe it might help.
Could be, yeah. I understand.
One more question,
Is there some ways to use external framework in the pipeline, like a Swift lint or Swift format, or there is like some custom tooling for handling linting, for example?
Yeah, so I believe I forgot to repeat the question. Sorry. So I believe yes, there is a way to use like custom frameworks. Like here, I used Xcode Project Gem, right? So I believe you can do the same with SwiftLint. In our case, we used SwiftLint on GitHub Actions because you can run it on Ubuntu and it's 10 times cheaper than macOS. So I think for us the main point to use Xcode Cloud, to try the Xcode Cloud, was that with GitHub Actions, you have 2,000 minutes in the free plan per month. But if you use macOS, 1 minute counts as 10 minutes. So in fact, you have only 200 minutes. And with Xcode Cloud, you have 25 hours, right? So it's much cheaper. But we still use GitHub Actions for basic operation whenever we can use Ubuntu OS.
Okay, so just last question from the back. Right, so on the PR flows, do you test the version before merging or after merging?
Actually, both. I mean, it depends on the project, but the best practice is to test before the merge and after the merge, even though there is on GitHub, there is a checkbox when you can ensure that the branch you're merging is up to date with develop. So actually you cannot merge if you are not up to date.
Nice. Cool. Okay. So thank you once again.
Thank you.